It was 6 a.m. when everything changed. 3 days after bringing our newborn daughter home from the hospital, the doorbell rang. Loud, aggressive knocking. I looked through the peephole and there she was, Margaret Whitmore, the president of our HOA, standing on the porch with two others and a man in a suit. No one in our neighborhood had ever warned us about this. But today, my wife Sarah and I were about to face something unimaginable. Margaret, with her cold smile, was there to take our baby, just because we weren't living up to her community standards. And if you think that sounds crazy, just wait till you hear the full story. Margaret wasn't just some neighbor making small talk. She was the president of the HOA. She had power, control, and a way of enforcing her own idea of what a proper family should look like. We hadn't done anything wrong. We were a loving family, married with a beautiful newborn daughter. But none of that mattered to Margaret. According to her, we weren't proper enough for her standards. She walked into our home with Child Protective Services demanding we hand over our daughter, all because we didn't fit the mold of what she thought was acceptable. So what do you do when the system, the people you trust, turn against you for something as trivial as a name on a marriage certificate? Watch this video to find out how a Navy SEAL father fought back to protect his family against an HOA president who was willing to tear it all apart. When I opened the door, Karen didn't wait for an invitation. She barged right in, as if she had every right to be here. I stood frozen, trying to make sense of what was happening. "Karen, what are you doing in my house?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice calm, but the anger was rising in me with every second. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, Karen turned and looked at Sarah, still lying in bed, exhausted from her C-section. "We are here to take the baby," she said with a sense of satisfaction, as if it were a done deal. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Sarah and I have been married for 3 years. Don't you see that?" I said, my eyes locked on our daughter, peacefully lying in her bassinet. Karen repeated her demand, pointing again at the baby with no compassion. "I don't need to prove anything to you. You have no right to do this," I said, gritting my teeth. But she didn't stop. She continued talking about the ridiculous HOA regulations, the traditional family values that she claimed to uphold. My eyes burned with fury. How could someone like her be in charge of this community? Suddenly, the man in the suit stepped forward, introducing himself as Harold Klein from Child Protective Services. He began pulling out papers, saying they were going to examine the baby and check if our family situation was stable enough. My mind was racing. Was this really happening? Karen just stood there next to me with a smug look, as if she had already won. "I will not let you touch my daughter," I said, stepping in front of Grace's bassinet, blocking his way. Karen's eyes flashed with annoyance. "Mr. Martinez, you are interfering with a legal investigation," she sneered. Harold Klein moved closer, and I could feel the pressure building. "Ma'am, please go back to bed," he said condescendingly. "We need to evaluate the environment." Sarah, still pale and shaky, finally spoke. "This is our daughter. We're married. We're a family." But Karen just stood there coldly, looking down on us. "Legally, your situation isn't what it seems, and that baby needs stability." I was trying to stay calm, but it was hard when someone was trying to tear apart your family for no reason. The situation escalated even further. Harold opened his briefcase. "I'll need to inspect the infant to ensure the living conditions are suitable. If things are not appropriate, the child will be placed in protective custody." My blood ran cold. "You're not touching her," I said, stepping even closer, now fully aware that this wasn't about family values, it was about control and harassment. Karen seemed to feed off our distress. "You don't meet community standards," she said coldly. "The house is disorganized, you're unmarried, and you have a father who is never around. Your situation is unstable." At that moment, I heard sirens in the distance, and a voice from the door spoke up. "Let me talk to them." I turned and saw Mrs. Patterson, an elderly neighbor, standing in the doorway, holding her phone. "I called 911 when I saw these strangers forcing their way into your house." Karen turned, Furious, "Ma'am, this is an official investigation," Harold protested. "This is harassment," Mrs. Patterson fired back. "I've been watching from my window. They came in here and started threatening a new family with a newborn." Mrs. Patterson had been the only neighbor who had shown real kindness to us since we moved in. She had always been there offering help and bringing over cookies when I returned from deployments. Karen sneered. "This is HOA business. It's none of your concern." "No," Mrs. Patterson retorted, "this is not HOA business. You are breaking into a family's home and threatening to take their baby." The tension was thick. In a few moments, things were about to take a drastic turn. Police cars pulled up outside, and officers entered our home ready to handle the situation. The officers, Johnson and Martinez, asked the standard questions. When they asked Karen if she had a warrant, she faltered for the first time. "You're under arrest for filing false reports, breaking and entering, and harassment," Officer Johnson said firmly as he took out the handcuffs. Karen's eyes widened with disbelief as she was cuffed. "This is ridiculous. They don't belong in this community," she screamed. But the
Karen
officers
shot us
weren't
one
listening.
last venomous look. "Your child will grow up confused and damaged because of your unstable lifestyle," she spat. But as they escorted her out, I held Sarah close. Our family wasn't unstable. We were strong. And now we had proof of who the real problem was. The aftermath of Karen's arrest was swift. The investigation revealed that she had been systematically targeting families she deemed unfit for the neighborhood, using false reports to try to break apart families. She had gone after the Johnsons, the Garcias, the Williams, and even the Chins, anyone who didn't fit her narrow view of what a family should look like. And now, her actions had consequences. The prosecutor filed charges, and Karen was found guilty. She was sentenced to 28 years in prison for child endangerment, false reporting, and discrimination. Her reign of terror was over, and the HOA was reformed. The new leadership made sure that every family, no matter their background, had a voice. Our community became a place of support, not judgment. Now, Grace is thriving, and our family is living the life we deserve. And as for Karen, she sits in prison, serving her time for trying to destroy lives that didn't conform to her outdated standards. Justice had been served, and our community was finally free of the poison that had once threatened to tear it apart. After Karen was taken away, the house felt oddly quiet, but it wasn't the peace I had imagined. The silence was heavy, weighed down by what had just happened. We had been violated, our family torn apart by the very people who were supposed to uphold the community's standards. Yet in the midst of it all, I felt a strong sense of resolve settling in. I held Sarah close, trying to comfort her as best I could. "David, how could she do that to us? Why would someone want to take our baby away?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling from the shock. It was hard to process, but I knew one thing for sure. We weren't going to let her win. The hours following Karen's arrest were a blur. Police took statements, and I provided all the documents that proved our family was legitimate: our marriage certificate, my military records, Sarah's teaching license. But none of it mattered to Karen. She had seen us as a threat, something that didn't fit into her narrow view of what a family should be. And now, her actions had consequences. The prosecutor filed charges, and Karen was found guilty. She was sentenced to 28 years in prison for child endangerment, false reporting, and discrimination. Her reign of terror was over, and the HOA was reformed. The new leadership made sure that every family, no matter their background, had a voice. Our community became a place of support, not judgment. Now, Grace is thriving, and our family is living the life we deserve. And as for Karen, she sits in prison, serving her time for trying to destroy lives that didn't conform to her outdated standards. Justice had been served, and our community was finally free of the poison that had once threatened to tear it apart. If this story resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with others who need to hear it. We've all faced challenges in life, but it's how we rise above them that truly matters. Let us know where you're watching from and how this story has inspired you. Leave a comment below. And if you want more powerful, heartwarming stories like this one, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. When you subscribe, you'll get access to even more content designed to inspire, empower, and remind you that every person has the strength to overcome. Don't forget to share this with your friends and family. Sometimes we all need a reminder that even when life feels tough, there is always hope, justice, and the power to make a change. Together, we can build a community where everyone's voice is heard and everyone's story is valued. Click the bell icon so you never miss out on the next life-changing story or important lesson. Thank you for being part of this community. We can't wait to hear from you.